You're listening to Keith Sports News. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to KSN episode 51. There are some big sports news to talk about, so let's get right into it, shall we? Alright, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the title of this episode, and that is Stanley Cup Final has come to an end. That's right. The Florida Panthers won their second consecutive Stanley Cup. That is very hard to do. You know, not just in the NHL, any sport, winning back-to-back. Yeah. So, congratulations to the Florida Panthers on winning 2 Stanley Cups in a row against the same team. Yeah. I was rooting for Edmonton. I really was. For a few reasons. Number one, Florida won it last year, so I would like to see a different team to win it. Number two, a Canadian team in the NHL has not won the Stanley Cup in over 30 years. And number three, they have Connor McDavid. And I think more people were rooting for the Edmonton Oilers. So, yeah. I had a feeling that Florida was going to win Game 6 on the Panthers' home ice. And that's what happened. Too tough, man. That was a tough loss for the Edmonton Oilers. And how about this player that scored 4 goals in the same game, Game 6? That is Sam Reinhart. That is amazing. So, Florida Panthers, they deserve it. They deserve to win another Stanley Cup Final. A hat trick, that's what they call it, when a player scores 4 goals in the same game. A hat trick, you normally don't see hat tricks. So, that was an amazing performance by the Florida Panthers. Man, I guess hockey is Florida's favorite sport. You know, this team went to 3 consecutive Stanley Cup Finals appearances. This year, last year, and the year before. And the three years before 2023, the Tampa Bay Lightning were in 3 consecutive Stanley Cup Final appearances. 2020, 2021, and 2022. The Lightning, they won 2020 and 2021, the COVID years. Florida Panthers, they lost 2023, then they won 2024 and 2025. So yeah, 6 years in a row, a Florida team, a team in Florida, was in the Stanley Cup Final. That's insane. And 4 Stanley Cup victories. 2 from Tampa and 2 from Florida. Panthers. Unreal. Man, I know, right? That's kind of weird to say. Florida, they don't have ice. It doesn't snow there, you know? But the reason why they have two teams there is because a lot of people from New York moved down to Florida. That's the truth. And Florida became more popular, more of a populated state over the years, and then they got two teams. So that's crazy, man. And Edmonton is so far up north. A lot of people grew up playing hockey, ice skating, snowing. That's normal up there. It's just too bad they couldn't win it. That's man. That is unfortunate. The Edmonton Oilers, not only they lost 2 consecutive Stanley Cup Final, but they lost it against the same team 2 years in a row. I'm not sure when's the last time that happened. Or in any sport, a rematch, but the same team won both times. I don't remember. So, yeah. Then they were asking about Connor McDavid's future. He has 1 year left on his contract. And I think everyone, including myself, would like to see him stay with the Oilers. So, yeah. So, a question that I thought of is, which Stanley Cup Final was better? Last year's or this year's? Last year's, before I answer that, last year's, if y'all remember, the Panthers had home ice advantage. They won the first 3 games, and then Edmonton won the next 3 games, setting up a crazy Game 7 historic matchup. Edmonton Oilers, history was on the line where a team was down 3-0, and then they forced a Game 7. That's crazy. That Game 7 was really good, and this year's Florida had home ice, and this year's had 3 of the games went into overtime. So both Stanley Cup Final were great. Which one was better? I might have to go with this year's, because even though this year's didn't go 7 games, probably because of those 3 fantastic overtime games. I mean, it's insane, But they were both great. This year's, however, had a disappointing ending if you're not a Florida Panthers fan, and if you were rooting for the Edmonton Oilers like me. A disappointing ending. Last year, I was also rooting for Edmonton last year. But last year's, it wasn't that disappointing. Okay? Because Florida won the first 3 games, and then, when a team wins the first 3 games in a best of 7, it's like, oh, it's over. The series is over. So which one do you think's better? This year's or last year's? I think this year's was better, mainly because of the 3 games that went into overtime. Those were some crazy, epic games. Even though this year's didn't have a great ending, last year's ending was much more intense, you know what I'm saying? So, but they were both great. I think this year, I'm going to give it a slight edge to this year's, even though this year's didn't go to 7 games, but I enjoyed it. So, I kind of knew Florida was going to win, though, Game 6 this year, and I kind of knew they were going to win Game 7 of last year's Stanley Cup Final. Another question that you might ask me, well, another question that I thought of was, okay, last year's, it was on ESPN, ABC. This year's on TNT. Which one do I like more? Which broadcast do I like more? Do I like the NHL on ESPN more, or do I like the NHL on TNT more? Which one do I like more? I like both. But I thought about it. I'm going to give a slight edge to ESPN's version. I like the NHL on ESPN a little more than TNT. I think it's because, now listen, I'm not a big NHL fan, but, okay, so from the past couple of years, okay, a couple years ago, 2021, the 2021 NHL season, it was the first season on both ESPN and TNT, okay, after many years on NBC, okay? So they alternate, right, between ESPN and TNT, which network hosting the Stanley Cup Final. They go back and forth. All right, last year it was ABC, this year TNT. So that means next year's Stanley Cup Final will be back on ABC. All right. The reason why I like ESPN's version a little more is because for the past couple of years, most of the games that I watch are the ESPN versions, the broadcast. Most of the games that I've watched were an ESPN version. Okay, I do like Sean McDonough on ESPN of the NHL, and on TNT I also like Kenny Albert. They're both fantastic announcers. Heck, I even like Sportsnet, the Canadian broadcast with Chris Kuberth or Kuberth. I forgot. Don't really know how to pronounce his last name, but he's great too. He used to be the voice of the CFL on TSN. So they're all great. And you know, back when it was on NBC, I've always liked it on that as well. So yeah, they're all great. So congratulations once again to the Florida Panthers on winning the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row. Now, another thing, this is a topic that people are talking about. Is this team a dynasty? Most people say yes, including myself. I think this is a dynasty. They went to 3 straight Stanley Cup Final appearances, for Pete's sake. When's the last time a team made 3 in a row? 3 appearances in a row. And they win 2 out of 3. That to me is a dynasty. Tampa Bay Lightning, same thing. They went to 3 straight. They won the first 2. That's also a dynasty, even though it was the COVID years. It didn't have like a full capacity crowd, but still, that's in the record books. All right. You know, in the NFL, we recently had a dynasty with the Kansas City Chiefs. We might have another dynasty. I won't be surprised if the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl again next year. I think they're the favorite. At least in the NFC, they're the favorites to go back to the Super Bowl. We might go from one dynasty to another. You know? The LA Dodgers might win another World Series this year in Major League Baseball. So, a dynasty you don't really see often. You really don't. I'll tell you what the best dynasty is in pro sports. It's not in the NFL. It's not in the MLB. It's not in the NBA. It's not in the NHL. So which one am I talking about? The CFL, Canadian Football League. The Edmonton Eskimos at the time, they won 5 consecutive Grey Cups from the late 70s to early 80s with quarterback Warren Moon, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. 5 in a row. Winning 5 in a row. Something like that may not ever happen again. Not just in the CFL, but any of the professional sports. A team winning 5 championships in a row. Jeez. What's the opposite of a dynasty? I guess the Buffalo Bills losing 4 Super Bowls in a row? Would you call that a dynasty? Nope, not to me, because you went 0 for 4. So, but hey, I guess that's better than not going to the Super Bowl at all. There are some teams in the NFL that have yet to make a Super Bowl appearance. And next year, it's going to be Super Bowl 60. So, yeah. Anyways, that's all I got to say about the Stanley Cup. So, great Stanley Cup, but a disappointing ending if you're not a fan of Florida Panthers, if you're rooting for Edmonton like me. But, yeah. To the NBA Finals. Last night was Game 6, and I watched that live. Okay, I watched 2 games live at the same time last night. NBA Finals was one of them, and the other game, the shirt that I'm wearing, yes, my favorite CFL team was playing last night, so I decided to watch both at the same time, okay? And, basically what I did was, so the NBA Finals came on first at 7:30 p.m. Central. The CFL game came on 30 minutes later at 8 p.m. Central. So what I did was I would go back and forth between the audio of the broadcasts. So when the NBA Finals is going on commercial, I would switch the audio to the CFL game. And I would do it back and forth until the NBA Finals came to an end. Alright? So let's talk about the NBA Finals next, because that's a big thing going on. Game 6 between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers in Indianapolis. Man, that crowd was hyped. They were. You see all the fans were wearing like a yellow shirt. They must have gotten those shirts for free or something like that. But in Oklahoma City, I think all the fans were wearing like a white shirt. I guess I don't know if that's like their tradition, but I feel like I've seen that before. But it was a must-win for the Pacers. And I actually wanted the Pacers to win. Why not see a Game 7, you know? This NBA Finals, it doesn't really excite me much, but it would be cool if the Indiana Pacers somehow win this NBA Finals, because they're a 4 seed. When's the last time a 4 seed won an NBA Finals? I don't remember. And my gosh, they were dominating the game from start to finish. I think they were up by like 30 points after the third quarter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was a beatdown. Yeah, at the end of the third quarter, Pacers leading 90-60. Wow. And that was pretty much it. The Indiana Pacers got an ESPN notification that says Pacers dominate Thunder. Indiana beats Oklahoma City 108-91 to force first NBA Finals Game 7 since 2016 and 5th since 2000. Oh yes. The two best words in sports, period. Game 7. Game 7 will be on Sunday night in Oklahoma City. This is it. One more game between the two teams that have yet to win a NBA title. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be in Oklahoma City. So, my prediction for Game 7, I think Oklahoma City is going to win. And remember, a while ago, I did predict Oklahoma City to win the NBA Finals anyways, so I'm not going to change that. But you know what? After that performance by the Pacers, I'm going to root for them. Yeah, I'm going to root for the Pacers. Even though they're not going to have the home crowd, but they might shock the world again. Remember they shocked the world in Game 1? Even against the New York Knicks in the East Final? They might shock the world again. Huh. Man. That would be huge. So I'm going to root for them. But if Oklahoma City wins, I'm not going to be upset about that. So, that's a must-watch. Game 7, that's a must-watch. I'm not a big NBA fan, but I'm going to watch that game. And by the way, now that we're getting a Game 7, I have an announcement I want to make. I will do a live stream of me watching Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. You are going to get another live stream. Watch along of me watching the 7th game of the NBA Finals. Yes. So this will be my 3rd live stream. All right, and I'm available. I should be available. And I should be able to start the stream before the actual game begins. I assume it's going to be at 7:30 again, right? Central. So, yeah. Now, unlike the UFL championship game where I showed my TV screen, I don't know if I should show my TV screen for this NBA Finals Game 7 because I think that's probably heavily copyrighted. I don't want YouTube to like block my stream. You know what I'm saying? Like while I'm streaming, while I'm live, I don't want that to happen. The first live stream I did was me watching a soccer match. I didn't show my TV at all because I know for a fact that it is heavily copyrighted and soccer is the most popular sport in the world, even though it isn't that popular in the USA. So, but yeah, I am going to watch NBA Finals Game 7. There's nothing else on Sunday night. So, I should be able to do it. Alright? Okay. And I also watched the TSN Sports Center of them talking about it. With Jay Onright. Man, Sports Center with Jay Onright is really entertaining. Yeah, he's awesome. Alright, speaking of TSN, CFL on TSN, Week 3 has begun. Thursday night football game between my favorite team, the Montreal Alouettes, against the Edmonton Elks. Yep. This was in Edmonton. The Elks did not play last week. They had a bye. Remember, there's 9 teams in the CFL, meaning each week a team gets a bye. Last week, Edmonton got a bye. This week, it's the Hamilton Tiger Cats that are not playing in Week 3. So, Thursday night football between the Alouettes and the Elks. All right. Rod Smith and Dwayne Ford were on the call. And Trey Ford, entertaining quarterback for the Elks. And let me look. Let me check here. This game, man, Montreal Alouettes offense is something very, very special. They scored pretty quick, and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, 10 points in the second quarter. That's 24-6 at halftime. Then in the fourth quarter, the Elks tried to make a comeback, but it was too little too late. They scored 22 points in the fourth quarter. So the Alouettes won 38-28. The Alouettes are 3-0. And the Elks are once again off to a 0-2 start. I remember they showed the graphic of the Edmonton Elks past couple of seasons where they went winless for a while. Man, this is not a good week for Edmonton sports. Oilers collapsing in the Stanley Cup Final. The Elks not off to another 0-2 start. Man, yeah. So the Alouettes won 38-28. And if you're an Alouettes fan like me, you have to feel really confident. They're undefeated, and the other teams in the East Division have 0 wins. 0 wins in the East Division for the 3 other teams. Tiger Cats, Argonauts, and Red Blacks are all 0-2. And I know it's only week 3, but still, that's a big difference. That is a huge difference. And I heard that the Alouettes are the favorite to win the Grey Cup. Ooh, I like the sound of that. All right. So, great performance by the Montreal Alouettes. Edmonton had a great performance in the fourth quarter with Trey Ford. Oh yeah, the former Alouettes quarterback, Cody Fajardo. He's now the secondary quarterback with the Elks. So it was kind of a weird night for him playing against his former team. I remember him where he threw the game-winning touchdown pass to Tyson Philpott to win the Grey Cup. And yes, they still have Philpott, so that's great. By the way, Philpott has a twin brother who plays with the Calgary Stampeders. And the Stampeders, they're a pretty good team too. What's his name? I'm trying to look and see his name here. Jalen Philpott. Yep, they're both twins. And they're both wide receivers. They're fantastic. So, man, wait until those two teams will play against each other. Okay, so for the rest of week 2, we have a Friday night football game between the Saskatchewan Roughriders at the Toronto Argonauts. I will watch that game. I'm going to make my predictions. The Roughriders are 2-0. Argonauts are 0-2. The game is in Toronto. They have Chad Kelly, but I don't think he's making his return yet. Well, as an Alouette fan, I would like to see the Argonauts lose again because that's their rivalry. I don't know. I think they're going to win tonight. I think it's going to be a very close game. So, I have the Argonauts winning. Might be a low-scoring game. I assume the announcers, it's going to be Dustin Nielsen and Glenn Suter, along with Luke Wilson, the former Seattle Seahawk tight end, now part of the Friday Night Football team, so that's cool. He's funny. And then we have another doubleheader on Saturday. At 3 p.m. Central, Ottawa Red Blacks at the Calgary Stampeders. I think the Stampeders are going to steamroll the Red Blacks because that game's in Calgary. That's my prediction. I will watch that game as well. And after that game, we have a rematch between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the BC Lions. So these two teams, they played against each other last week where the Blue Bombers won. And now they got to do it again in BC. The game is in BC. This could go either way. I guess I'll lean a little towards the Blue Bombers. 5 Tayer's favorite team. And there you go. Those are my predictions here. We'll see how they'll go. And I think I'm going to watch the rest of these games live since I am a huge fan of the Canadian Football League. And yeah, no game on Sunday night, so that's perfect. I can watch the NBA Finals on Sunday night, Game 7. All right, let's see here. Any other news here before I want to talk about the next topic here? No, not really. Yeah, I listen to a lot of sports talk podcasts. They're obviously going to talk about the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals. Okay, so, oh yeah, back to the Stanley Cup Final. I was listening to my number one favorite sports talk show podcast on SiriusXM, Mad Dog Unleashed with Christopher Mad Dog Russo. He was saying that the Stanley Cup Final ratings weren't really good because it was on TNT. Last year's, I think he said last year's the ratings were higher because it was on ABC. And he has a good point. Not everyone has TNT. TNT is not a local channel. ABC is a local channel. You got ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS. Not everyone has TNT. You know how after we watched the UFL championship game last year, what was it playing after the game? My local news. Does TNT play your local news after the Stanley Cup Final? No, it doesn't. But recent years, TNT Sports has a lot going on. Back in the old days, it was mainly the NBA on TNT, and sadly, it's no longer on there anymore. The NHL is on TNT. They brought tennis for the French Open, okay? And of course, MLB's still on TBS, March Madness, okay? And All Elite Wrestling AEW. That's a lot. That is a lot of sports programming on TNT Sports. And I think NASCAR is coming back to TNT. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I saw something that says NASCAR is coming back to TNT. So does that mean NASCAR is no longer on NBC? I don't know. So yeah, I still think NBC Sports in general is the best. It's my favorite. And a lot of times you see Mike Tirico. Mike Tirico was at obviously, Sunday Night Football is his main thing. He's the announcer. The host of the Olympics, okay? He was at the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes horse racing, and the recent U.S. Open golf. Yeah, he's Mr. NBC. So, I've always liked NBC anyways, especially because I have Peacock. a lot of these events are also on Peacock, and I don't have to watch it live. I can always rewind, pause, fast forward. That's great. Okay, baseball news. Not MLB. I'm talking about college baseball. The College World Series final is set. Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, I used to watch quite a bit of College World Series games years ago, but recent years, I kind of just stopped caring about it. This year, I do know what happened. That's why I'm bringing this up. This year, I'm not that excited. However, it's weird. Like, it's not like March Madness where you lose one, you're eliminated. In this College World Series, all I know is that when you lose 2 games, you're eliminated. So apparently, last weekend, LSU faced Arkansas. That's a huge matchup. Two teams from the SEC, and the 2 best teams, in my opinion, in the College World Series. So LSU won on Saturday night. So that means Arkansas had to win the rest of their games because, if they lose again, they're eliminated. And on Monday afternoon, this pitcher, I forgot his name, this Arkansas pitcher, no hitter. No hits against Murray State. That's like the third or fourth time in College World Series history where we had a no-hitter. Amazing. So then on Tuesday night, they faced UCLA, the team that lost to LSU, okay? And Arkansas won. Then on Wednesday night, for some weird reason, Arkansas had to face LSU again. And I'm like, what? Why are they facing each other again? I thought if they face each other again, it'll be in the finals. And this is the game to go into the finals. And Arkansas was winning the whole game until the very end. Somehow LSU scored 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning, and then they advance to the College World Series. Like, if you know what I'm talking about, how did Arkansas choke on that? How do you choke on that? And I gotta be honest, I wanted Arkansas to win. Yes, I know, I live in the capital city of Louisiana. You'd think I should be rooting for LSU. Yes, I understand that. I wanted Arkansas to win, mainly because my father went to college there. And that was obviously a long time ago. And they went to so many College World Series appearances without winning the championship. I remember back in 2018, they were in the finals. We were in Orange Beach, Alabama, at the hotel room watching that game, and they were supposed to win the championship game, and they choked. 7 years later, they still can't even win it. And that wasn't even, I don't understand. They had a rematch, LSU and Arkansas. Why wasn't that the finals? They're clearly the 2 best teams. I don't understand this format. I really don't, and I probably never will. So LSU's in the championship game. Obviously, yeah, I want them to win. I do, but I'm probably not going to watch those games. I might if I remember, but I wonder if any of my friends that went to LSU knows about this, because they don't follow sports. So I don't know. And the weird thing is, the format, it's a best of 3. Game 1 is Saturday night. Game 2 is Sunday afternoon. The reason why it's Sunday afternoon is because Sunday night you got the NBA Finals, and you got Sunday Night Baseball, and then Monday night is Game 3. Kind of weird, but it's usually like that anyways. They're gonna face Coastal Carolina. What if somehow Coastal Carolina wins? Or will this be like a will this be like a slaughter, like the TCU Georgia football national championship slaughter? Okay, I think I'm getting a little carried away here. So yeah, I'll be rooting for LSU, but I might not even watch the games because I'm not a fan of college baseball anyways. I mainly follow, you know, pro sports. The only college sport I really follow is football. That's about it. So, um, yeah, game one is Saturday night, and yeah, I'm just not hyped up for this. And they won it 2 years ago. I remember they had Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens, the Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher, used to play for LSU. And I remember my neighbor, they had like a party there, and I would go outside, and I would hear them like yelling and cheering and screaming. That's how loud they are. So, by the way, LSU baseball, they have more championship wins than football. They really do. So, I think they're gonna win. I'll be surprised if somehow LSU doesn't win the College World Series. So, I'm gonna message one of my friends that went to LSU. He actually just graduated there. I wonder if he knows about this. He might, but he doesn't follow sports like I do. So, I might watch it if I get a chance, but I'm confident that LSU's gonna win this title. And yeah, so Stanley Cup Final has ended. College World Series is coming to an end. Same with the NBA Finals. And usually after that, that's where a lot of my favorite sports talk podcasts hosts, they would take like a vacation. They would take like a vacation for like a week or two. I know Christopher Mad Dog Russo is going to go on vacation. So, later this month, the last Monday of June, I believe, is the beginning of Wimbledon. The biggest tennis tournament of the year. Yeah, I know, the French Open just ended. Not too long ago. I know. It's always like that. Wimbledon is always around the corner after the French Open. So, I will watch a lot of that. Okay, I got YouTube TV, so I don't have to get up super early to watch it live. I just gotta try my best to avoid spoilers, which is, not an easy thing to do. Okay, one last thing. I got a comment from the last episode of KSN of me talking about the UFL Championship game. Episode 50. From Cody Roeder 4193, a new subscriber that tuned in to my live stream of me watching the UFL Championship game. He's a Michigan Panthers fan. He said that that game hurt. Go Michigan. I know. That did hurt. Next year, hopefully. Maybe next year. That's all I can say. So, So, I will do a live stream on Sunday night of me watching the NBA Finals. And if y'all are available, that's awesome. We can talk about sports while watching this interesting Game 7. Alright guys, that is it for KSN episode 51. Have a great weekend and enjoy your sports weekend. Peace out. See you on Sunday night.
Thank you for listening to Keep Sports News.